day. Day by day. We get better and better. We get better and better. So we can't beat beat. We can't beat beat. Won't beat beat. Won't beat beat.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to Day by Day. This is a new podcast. I'm James. I'm with Andrew. Andrew, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm doing well. Just got the family fed, so.
Well, thanks for tuning in. We are excited to start this podcast. We'll introduce ourselves here in a minute. But first, Andrew, I want to ask you where you got that hat. We do not have any sponsors for this show. It's a brand new show. We are not doing this for the money, but I want you to tell everybody where you got that hat. And no, it's not from Bob Devaney, but it sure looks like it.
So I got the hat in Omaha. I'm not in Omaha. I live in a different state. We'll get to that. But I got the hat for a birthday gift from a store in Omaha that I think is now closed, and I don't know the name. But it is it's actually made in Seattle, Washington, which is nearby where I'm at. It's called Ebbetsfield Flannels. And they make some pretty sweet, kind of retro, old-timey looking hats. So it's my game day hat.
I love it. Yeah, I sent Andrew a picture the other day of Bob Devaney and Tom Osborne, I think, wearing the exact same hat back in the 60s. So awesome. Well, yeah, thanks for tuning in. We're excited to do this. Andrew and I have been talking about this for years. So we'll just start by introducing ourselves a little bit, and then we'll get into it. It's game week. We're recording this on Wednesday. Got a game Saturday. We'll talk about all kinds of things on this podcast. I mean, we'll just cover Husker sports or football. We'll cover all Husker sports, but we'll talk mostly football this week. A lot of predictions, kind of our thoughts on fall camp. But yeah, let's just start. Andrew, why don't you just tell everybody who you are?
Yeah, I'm Andrew Reiners, born and raised in Nebraska. I am now living in Washington State on the Olympic Peninsula. Wanted to make a life change and bring the family up here to the great outdoors. But I have not faltered on my Husker fandom. I enjoy everything Huskers, all the old pods and all the old radio stations, all of that. I still take that in every day. So I wife and kids, 2 dogs, 3 cats. It's a zoo at our house, but especially come Husker season, that's when I get a little bit riled up. So
nice. All right. Yeah. And I'm James Prush. I live in Lincoln. I'm from Omaha originally. Andrew and I have known each other for like 20 years, by the way. We went to college together. UNL. Yep. So Husker alums. Yeah. Wife Carly. We have 4 kids. They love the Huskers. They are excited for the season to start. And I work in marketing and development for a nonprofit that cares for vulnerable children and love to do that. But in my free time, I basically am just with my family and pay attention to Nebraska sports. So that's all I have time for. So I love that we get to do this together. Andrew and we don't get to see each other ever. You know, I think we were saying it's been like 2 years since we've seen each other face to face. We text a lot. We don't do FaceTimes or anything like that. So just getting to do this with you, I think is going to be a blast. Be a great way for us to connect, but talking Husker sports, what could be better than that? So, all right. So let's just get into it here.
Real quick, I should mention too. Yeah, I'm also a nonprofit. I work right now with a homeless population. Have a long history working with youth in residential care, Boys Town back in Omaha, and James as well. So we both have that overlapping with foster kids and criminal justice and whatnot. And I think that can be a very relevant thing as we talk about young people in sports and mental health and all things in that realm too. So looking forward to some of those conversations.
Yeah, and I think too, like we want to talk sports and what happens on the field, but I think for both of us, there's a big part that's like we want to talk about the things that happen outside the lines. You mentioned mental health. I love the conversation around NIL and helping student athletes make it financially. There's a lot of politics in sports, right? There's a lot of power dynamics. And so we want to talk about those things too, in relation to Nebraska and kind of how it relates to our teams here. So, all right, well, let's talk fall camp, and then we'll get into some predictions. So What did you take away from fall camp this year? What were some of your big takeaways? What did you love hearing? Did anything make you nervous?
I think the big thing that's the what you love to hear is the culture conversation, and obviously Matt Rule's proven to do that, build that culture from year 1, 2 to 3.
Yep.
So that body sizes you hear a lot about, that's always kind of been a weird
Oh
conversation.
yeah,
We pay attention to what people look like, but we also see that in the Big Ten, especially, it matters the size and speed and whatnot of our players, especially on the lines. So that's been exciting. It sounds like their nutrition program and their strength conditioning is top notch right now. Yeah, as well
agree.
as as well
Yeah,
as just the culture.
I
So
love the spotlights in the Chasing 3 documentary on nutrition.
mhm.
And I mean, how many years did we hear, no, Nebraska's got one of the best nutrition programs? And then at some point, it just seemed to be like, you know what? It's not a big deal.
Yeah,
And you got guys who don't look like, not like FBS athletes, but they didn't belong in the Big Ten, right?
right.
Like their bodies just weren't built or made
Yeah,
for Big Ten football. And that's a huge focus. And it's like, nope, we are going to feed their bodies right so that
yeah,
they can perform at a high level. So I love that about the documentary. I thought that was hopefully they weren't tipping their cap too much. I know they showed who they were
yeah.
contracting with, and that guy was like, "We want to be in all the sports." I was like, "No, no, 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 just us, just us. You can't feed other programs."
I was listening.
All right. Well, let's talk. Well, I had this question about high ceiling, high floor, low ceiling, low floor. Where do you think this team is? Do they have a high ceiling but a high floor? Do they have a high ceiling and a low floor? Which one would you rather have? Like I'm like, I don't want us to just be boom or bust. I'd kind of like to know what we're getting every Saturday when they play. Um, and I
Yeah,
I I kind of think I know what we're getting, but I'm not at practice. And I'll say, like, for those of you watching, like, oh, like, who are these guys? Like, who are your, what are your qualifications? We're not Husker insiders. That's not. We don't pretend to be that. Uh, but just as you observe, like you talked about the culture, like I think I know what I'm going to get with this team. Whereas last year, I really didn't know,
yeah.
had no clue.
I think that it's maybe an easy answer, but I feel like the floor is higher than usual, and I feel like the ceiling's a little higher for this team than usual. I don't see us stubbing our toe and losing 4 or 5 to finish the season, and a lot like last year. I really, we'll get to predictions later, but I feel like we're going to see some success. I feel like we're going to see some meaningful games late in the season, and maybe channel a little energy from. We had the 1 year under Mike Riley where we were approaching top 10, and it was like the buzz is back around the program, and I feel that coming. So I see the floor,
And then
kind
we
of,
ran into Ohio State.
and then we ran Ohio State.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. We were 7-0, I think.
yeah,
And maybe hit top 10. Maybe. I don't know
yeah.
if we got into top
We
10. I
lost to
can't remember.
Wisconsin, I think. Or was it overtime, or it was in Madison? We lost
That
with.
same year.
Yep,
Yeah. Yeah.
that was our
And we
first.
got to a bowl game. That's the last time we went. You
Yeah.
guys listening know that. Okay. Depth chart. Any surprises there for you?
None. I think once we got the the reveal of the single digits, that made sense. So the defense seemed locked in, and if you've been paying attention to press conferences, I think they were already alluding to, "Hey, here's the guys." If you
Yep.
watch those Chasing 3 videos, and you can see who that, at least on the defensive side. Um, there's a name in there like a Derek Branch. We don't, kind of came out of nowhere. Um, Amari Sanders came on late, Miami product in there.
Uh-huh.
So more so on the two deep. Some of who are the guys that snuck into that
Yeah, I
backup.
mean, look, you mentioned the single digits. Like, listen, this is the starting defense.
Yep.
Robinson 9, Nash 0, Butler 1, Bullock 5, and then you have Bayer at 42, Sherman 48, but then you got Hill 6, Gifford 2, Hartzog 7, Singleton 8, Buford 3.
Right.
Like almost the whole defense is single digits, which is cool when you think about it. So just two guys, who didn't get those single digits. I don't think anybody doubts their toughness or their leadership. They just didn't for whatever reason.
There's
But like
only so many
that's pretty amazing.
Yep. Yeah. If anything, I think it's like there's only so many to give away. I think there's lots of guys that
Yep.
were deserving, but
Anybody
0 through
who
9.
didn't is there anybody that didn't get a single digit that you thought that like surprised you that they didn't get it? Because I have one in particular.
Um, I think like a Cam Linhart seems like. I mean, he seems like a starter. He's going to be that fourth
Yep.
D lineman in there when they're in that 4-man front. I think offensively there could have been. We can read a lot into it. Obviously, the defense is strong, but yeah, offensively you can do the honorary lineman to earn them. A lot of people thought Dylan would get one. I definitely think one of the running backs would be my surprise that there isn't a running back with it.
Yeah. That's where I was going. When I initially heard about Rule doing the single digits last year, I'd have to find the article or the quote. I thought he said, like, I reserve single digits for the toughest guys on the team. Am I making that up?
I think it's toughest and leaders.
Okay.
He would say, because this is how Rule works, it wouldn't be about like a physical toughness. I'm sure he would say mental toughness and that
everything.
Who's that example?
So with that, I was surprised Ramir wasn't a single digit.
Yeah.
But again, I think he'll prove it on the field, and I'll get to that in a little bit.
It'd be interesting to be a fly on the wall in those situations because I imagine, okay, our guy's disappointed. Our guy's like, did anyone turn one down? Did they just want the number that they have? Yeah, it's interesting to see.
Yeah, it could have been like, hey, great honor, but hey, my dad was 51 and I'm sticking with 51 or whatever. So, yeah. Oh, let's move into black shirts. Probably no surprises there on the black shirts.
No. And I love how they were simple and let's get it out there and move on. And I know that's been talked about a lot.
Yep.
James, you probably have some thoughts on black shirts.
Well, yeah. I just think Bo Pelini made it hard. He took the black shirts away when guys didn't perform well, so I would say this, he probably let his emotional immaturity take over. Anybody who says Bo wasn't emotionally immature, I think it's a little disingenuous if you ask me. Like he let his emotions get the best of him and say, oh, we take him away, we'll give him back. I don't know. And then I think for that stretch of time, that probably those few years that was happening, it was just so turbulent and you just never knew like, well, who's a black shirt? Who's not? Well, the original intention of the black shirts was just to give them to the starters on defense so they didn't blend in with everybody else. And so then it became this tradition. And I think that the prize, the reward is you get to start for the defense at the University of Nebraska. And that's what they did. And I love it. It's simple. Who's the black shirts? It's those 11 guys plus Cam because he's, in the rotation. He'd be the 12th.
Yeah.
So,
well, we heard things under Bo, guys that, they were out there playing not to fail. They were playing not to miss, playing not to get their, shootout.
If you saw Bo and Carl on the sidelines, how would you play?
Yeah. So
right?
The same goes with the black shirt. You intimidate them by pulling it. Like it's not a good recipe there. So
this is great. So I was doing a little research on this earlier, but to prep for the show here. And George Kelly was the defensive line coach for Nebraska between 1960 68. And the choice of the black shirt, like the fit, like actually black, was not intentional. And here's the quote. He said later on, honestly, it was an accident of availability. And so they just needed something to distinguish. It could have been blue, could have been gray, could have been green. It could have been whatever they had available. And they ended up giving them black. So a happy accident. It worked out well. Now, if we could just figure out, how to incorporate black into our uniforms like the soccer team did, our alternates would be a lot better than what we have.
For all of Frost's failures, the black jersey with the skull and crossbones on the shoulder pad, those were pretty sweet. So,
but I think there are some former offensive linemen out there who would hate that.
Yeah,
I think they would hate that. I think I know one. I won't name him, but I think there's some out there like, yeah, we're not the black shirts, but I know those uniforms with the black stripe down the helmet, they were pretty clean. They were nice. Okay, let's talk about this now. I think came out yesterday during Marcus Satterfield's time with the media, where he said we're going to see Heinrich on the field with Dylan a lot. And I had some conversations on Twitter. I refuse to call it X. Twitter with some people, and because I retweeted the quote, I can't remember what reporter said this, but I was like, I love it. I didn't mean I love it every play. I don't think Heinrich's going to be out there every play, but I'm curious if you like that. We haven't talked about this. Do you like that? What do you think his role in the offense is going to be? What does a lot mean? We
Right.
could speculate. Satterfield didn't go into that, but I'm curious what you think.
Well, first question back at you: do you believe it? Is it a? I've heard that too.
Is it gamesmanship?
Yep. If true, I do like it. I'm not sure I love it, but because if he's truly your second, and you're putting a risk in there for injury and whatnot.
But what if it means they really, really trust and like Danny Kalen?
Yeah, or Gramstead. I mean,
or Gramstead.
Yeah,
but I mean, I personally, in today's world, like with the shifting of the transfer portal and NIL, the lure of NIL, like you don't want to ever feel like, okay, our plan is perfect and we're not going to change it. But in an ideal world, man, you redshirt Kalen and Dylan plays for 3 years, does amazing, and then goes to the NFL and does his thing. And then Kalen still gets 2 years to play. Can a guy wait that long? I don't know. If he loves Nebraska, I would, but I can't answer for him. And so it's like, I don't want him to play this year. So yeah, I agree with you. I want Heinrich in there, but if he is one of your best athletes on the team.
Yeah. Oh, I've seen him break some of those up the middle last year,
the
breakaway speed. And I love it if it's not a Dylan going and sitting on the bench, at 3rd and 6. And it's like, what are we doing here? Or at the goal line, even like, don't take your stud quarterback out.
What I think we're going to see is, I don't know that we're going to see it in the first game. I think you could see it against Colorado, especially if things are not going the way that you hope.
Right.
So what I could see is sometime in the first or second quarter, Harburg lines up at the slot or outside or tight end, or maybe he lines up in the backfield and he is really just out there as eye candy. And people are like, okay, 10 is on the field.
Yeah.
And then you're going to see him trot off the field, because what Satterfield and Rule are looking at is, what did the defense do when he was on the field? And then I think you're going to see it again later in the game. You might see him on the field 2 plays in a row. And then maybe that third play is whatever. It could be a reverse pass. It could be something where they get him the ball. The reason I think that is because in the game against Oklahoma in 2001, where Mike Stuntz threw that pass to Eric Crouch, like they ran a version of that play earlier in the game. Mike Stuntz was a quarterback and he was buried on the depth chart. But when Mike Stuntz came into the game, nobody thought he was going to do that and throw a touchdown pass. Right. Now, obviously, we're kind of tipping our hands saying, yeah, Heinrich's going to be out there, but that's kind of what I think it'll be. 3 to 4 plays tops with a purpose.
Right. So. And when it's easy to trust that Rule isn't just that guy that's going to give a guy some playing time because out of like, oh, I just should because he's been here 5 years or whatever.
Yep.
Rule is going to do everything with an intentional purpose. And so if he's on the field, yeah, I agree. It's whether that's to throw off the other team, but it's not for some motives of, well, he was our starter last year, so we're going to throw him a bone.
Yeah.
So
they can't do, they couldn't do that. Not enough plays in the game to do that. Can't waste it. But if it's for a purpose, I do love it. I love it because he's a good athlete. I've seen the guy do 360 dunks, and he's 6'5", 225 pounds. Like there's not many people that can do that play football. So
I know this is like drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit, but as we were talking about that, do you get the feeling, I almost get the feeling that there aren't enough spots for the talent we have. Like I'm hearing us talk about Heinrich on the field. Well, then who goes off the field? and that's I guess that's a good
Yep.
feeling to have because it's been a long time since we
Agree.
felt like we were that deep, that much talent.
I mean, you think about this, like Amon Green was
Yeah,
the second string quarterback, running back, quarterback, second string running back until then Phillips had his legal stuff go on, and then Green steps in. You
yeah,
had Damon Benning on the bench. You had Jay Sims. He was a little older because I think he had maybe I don't remember what he did at military or baseball, or I'm probably mixing up guys, but Jay Sims was good and he was the fourth string. Clinton Childs was amazing. That was what we grew up with, right? Like these guys were incredible and they could have started anywhere, but they chose to come to Nebraska.
yeah.
And I
That's
think
just
that's what Rule wants to get back to is, he said it this spring, like, why wouldn't you want to come here?
yeah.
This is the best place in the country.
Well, shoot, they just allowed a walk on. I don't know if you were going to get to that, but the tight end from LSU, like
Yeah.
all of a sudden, I mean, it's just stacking talent, which
Right?
is
I know.
yep,
That's crazy. We probably don't have time to get into that. And I'm actually still sorting out the details because
yeah,
it seems like, he never entered the transfer portal because the
yeah,
portal's not open. He just chose to leave LSU and do his own shopping
yep,
and enrolled at Nebraska, which he has a right to do. I mean, think about remember, these are college students. You can leave at any time. You might lose some credits and whatnot,
yeah,
but you could leave school and go somewhere else. Yeah, if
yeah.
they let you in. Now the issue is I don't know if he's going to be able to play this year. I think they're
He's practicing, so
trying to figure
yeah,
that out, right?
yeah.
Last time. Right. Okay, let's get to some predictions for the year. Let's talk about your under the radar player to make a big impact, offense and defense.
Sure.
And I did pick mine before the depth chart came out, and so I ended up with 2 starters, which kind of stinks. I'm not changing them though. I'm committed. I'm not changing my answer. So I'll start. On offense.
Okay.
It's Janiron Bonner. I think defenses are going to key a lot on the headliners, Banks, Nair, Fedoni, and I don't. Is he gonna have 500 receiving yards this year? Probably not. But I think he's a guy that's going to pick up some big first downs. He's probably going to be a threat in the red zone. He can line up out of the backfield. He can pick up blitzes. So for me, he's a starter, right? He's starting in the slot, but for me, he's my under the radar player that I think is going to have a big year.
Yeah, yeah. Offensively, that's a good one. I mean, he's not talked about often, but you go back if you're paying attention to the videos and whatnot,
Yep.
he's there. You see number
Yep.
16, whatever, catching balls, and so that also tells me he's probably created a pretty good chemistry with Dylan
Yep.
since Dylan's been in.
Yep.
I'm going to go another receiver, go IGC, so the backup to Bonner, and only part of me just rooting for the guy for the comeback
Yep.
story with the injury, um, but yeah, we tend to kind of forget about him really heavily heavily sought after in the portal. What he did in Ireland with I think he had a pretty impressive TD in there
Yep.
and a couple other solid catches and you hear a lot about what he's done in the weight room. So really it's just seeing if he's healthy on the field. And again, I see him just having possibly a couple of those season changing, game changing moments in a game when it maybe kind of comes out of nowhere, but you jump up and down and say there's IGC. So yeah, he's my pick.
I love it. All right, who you got on defense?
Defense, I'm going to go with Prince Will. I'm not even going to say his last name.
Unanimel. Ooh,
Umin-
man,
yeah.
I struggle with his last name. I
But
should admit that.
I just really, I liked what I saw out of him last year, the Colorado game, on the quarterback several times. Hoping we get that same result this year, next week. But put on weight, just seems like a Matt Rule guy. Matt Rule's known the family for a long time. They tried to get his brother to transfer, but
Yep.
Seems like a culture guy, physical. He's one that, if they handed out more black shirts, he'd probably be
on there.
at next in line to get one. So looking for a big year and,
Yep.
I'll say it. Let's do, 5 sacks out of him this year would be big. So
Uman Mielen.
yeah.
Uman Mielen. Yeah, he was dynamite a few times last year.
Yeah.
He's put on some weight. I think you mentioned that.
Yep.
And he's only a sophomore. He's just so lengthy, right? Like 6'5". Like he's just a big guy. When you think of, somebody coming around the edge, like he's that guy. So I'm looking forward to watching him. For me on defense, it's another linebacker. It's Mekhi Bear. Always seems to be around the ball. That's what I think he had like 26 tackles or something last year, so not a ton. But he was only a sophomore last year,
Yep.
and line, he was fighting his way up the depth chart. But what I found when he was on the ball, special teams too. He was always around the ball on kickoffs. So that's what we need on this defense. That if it wants to get to the next level, be around the ball, take the ball away,
Yeah.
and I like Bayer that way. So
in year 2, we talk about Matt Rule's teams in year 2 making that jump, or year 3.
Yep.
I don't know if we've talked enough about seeing players make that jump. So I'm excited to see a player like Mekhi Bear, like showed flashes last year, but there's going to be guys that just blow us away this year. I think just the pure development that they get.
Development.
Yep. So,
which I get excited about, and I know people knock that because they're like, oh, well, Iowa wins games, but they don't win games very pretty. It's ugly, but I want to win some games with offense and defense, but because guys are being developed. Like, also, it's not a knock to be a developmental program because nobody's fully developed when they come out of high school.
Right.
As a human, as a football player, as an athlete, you're not. So let's develop people.
Man.
All right, who's your MVP for the team?
I'm going to go Dylan. Whether that's Kool-Aid, cheating, easy way out, it better be. That's if we want to win 10 games this year, it better be Dylan.
Why does it always have to be the quarterback?
I don't think it has to be, but
you picked the quarterback.
I picked that based on last year's production.
That's a good point.
At the position, so I want that to be completely turned around this year.
I agree. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to see it from a little different angle. I want to know who's going to take the pressure off Dylan, because there has to be a pressure release valve, right? Man, this team is stacked on the receiving core, and I think I would not be surprised if Raiola throws for 2,500 to 2,800 yards.
Right.
I mean, he could get close to 3,000 depending on how games go and all that, right? But I want to know who's the pressure release valve. And for me, and if he can stay healthy, it's Ramir Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
6th year, God love him. He came back. He could have retired. Like, he could have just said, I'm done. But he came back after, he's had 2 previous injuries, I think, 2 season-ending injuries. And so if he can stay healthy, he's put on weight. What I've heard is he doesn't look like what he did last year in terms of his body. So you go back to that, just your body and your development that you mentioned a few minutes ago. I don't think Ramir's going to run for 1,000 yards, but I think with his rushing yards, receiving, and kick return yards, I think he'll easily eclipse 1,000 yards. Again, if he can stay healthy. Now, I'll openly admit, hey, if Emmett or the other running backs, or even Gabe, like if they beat him out and start to play, great. I would love that. But I think this is going to be a big year for Ramir. It's the year of Ramir. So he's my MVP.
That's a good one. Look what he did against Michigan. He's bouncing off D tackles and linebackers, and tough kid and good receiving threat. So good pick.
Tough. He is. He's tough. I want tough guys on this team.
Yep.
All right, you got any oddly specific predictions?
So I'm going to say one. I'll say on the defensive side, I'm going to say we get a safety in game 1.
Okay.
Just a tone setter. It's going to be they're backed up. It's not going to be something gimmicky like a block punt or something.
Okay.
But I think the D-line is going to blow up and get a safety.
Wonder when the last time we had a safety was.
It feels like it's been forever, but
Because I think a few of the block kicks we've had or block punts, they've turned into touchdowns the
Mm,
last few years. I'd have to look that up when our last safety was.
yep.
Safeties are exciting. It's 2 points, but I just feel like it's just, especially at home, like the crowd just they get into it when there's a safety.
Yep. You
That's
go
the
ahead.
only oddly specific prediction you have for the whole year.
Okay, so a fun one would be, which game does Matt Rule provide us the quote, the viral video on their chasing
Oh,
three or whatever they're going to call it during
yeah,
this?
sure.
What is the if we die we die game?
Yeah.
Where does that
Yeah.
happen this year? That'd
Hopefully
be
there's no hopefully there's no more chasing 3 videos and it's being chased.
hey, one's coming. There, part 3 is apparently coming, and but that's
Oh,
the end of fall camp.
okay.
So I had to see that one. But my
Okay.
specific prediction, that's
So
going to be
which
the Rutgers game. I'm going to say it's
Rutgers?
the game.
Okay. So yeah, I'm thinking back to last year when he gave those speeches, and what I think was, I mean, like I remember going to games. I'd go to cousins' games, like football games, and I played baseball in high school, and there were just certain teams you played that like you didn't. And baseball is different. Baseball players are weird. Like you don't get psyched up for games. You try to stay as cool as possible. So football is different, right? But like with football, as a fan, if I have to get jacked up when we're playing Michigan or Colorado,
Mm.
something's really wrong with me. Like you just walk into the stadium as a fan and you're like, I can't even eat because I am so just
Yeah.
excited. So for me, I think a lot of those speeches come against teams that you're like, we kind of know we should beat, but we're really not playing super well. So I think that if we die, we die last year was like Northern Illinois or something like that. I have to go back and look. I don't think it was a big game, but so I like the Rutgers pick.
I will say, I think Rule's a little bit. He's a little annoyed at how the Colorado result happened last year. So I expect some
That's
fire.
well, that's a good point.
That
Well,
Colorado game, he's going to be fiery.
I mean, I haven't thought about this. I didn't know you were going to ask that question, which I love the question. But if my gut just reaction would be like, it's going to be like Illinois or Indiana or something like that. Like we should just beat the brakes off Indiana.
Yeah.
But it'll probably be like 14-3 at halftime, and we're going to get a video a week or two later where he's like, you know, you should beat these guys by whatever. Oh, I don't know if it was the if we die we die, but I want to say the Northwestern game last year. He said something at halftime like, do you remember this? You're gonna win the game. You're the better team, and the better team always wins. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yep.
I was a little shocked, but I loved it because he's like, you're gonna win the game.
Exude that confidence, but yeah,
The better team wins. But you are playing like who? Like so I just I think it's gonna be something like that. It's gonna be Illinois, Indiana, some cakewalk game that they should win, and they're not playing up to their potential. So
Husker Nation will eat it up no matter what. So
yeah. All right, I got 2. I think Tommy Hill's going to have 6 picks this year. He had 4 last year, but here's the really strangely specific one. I think he's going to return a pick for a touchdown against Colorado in the first quarter. So not just a pick for a touchdown, but against Colorado and in the first quarter. And I think Memorial Stadium will probably come unglued when that happens.
Will louder or as loud as the Alex Henry kick, which I know you were present.
Yes, I was at. That was my favorite Husker game I've ever been at.
That will be loud.
And then I met Alex one time, and I didn't even know it. I was job shadowing for a day, and that's no slight on Alex.
Yeah.
I was shadowing a potential job at the time when I was kind of in between. I was with Zach Potter for the day. Zach works at a audiovisual company in Omaha, and we got connected, and so I followed Zach around, and we go to a construction site, and we're talking about all the iPads and everything that's going everywhere. And Alex is sitting there at the table, but he just looks like me. He just looks like a normal guy, where Zach is huge. So we kind of walk out, and he called him Al the whole meeting, and it just did not connect for me. It
Yeah.
just did not connect. And so we walk out, and I look at Zach, and I go, "Was that Alex Henry?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, okay, all right, all right." But we know when the guys have their helmets on, you don't always know. And this is, it had been 15 years since
Oh, Al.
Henry was in college. So anyway, okay, so that's my Alex Henry story. Okay, my other oddly specific prediction is that Jamal Banks is going to break Trey Palmer's school record for receiving yards with 1,058. I think Trey's somewhere like 1,030 something or 40 something. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But I think he's going to get 1,058 yards. He won't set a school record for touchdowns. That belongs to Quincy Enunwa at 12. I think Banks will have 9. But 1,000 yards. I mean, he's a one and done, right? This is what he's got, and I think he's going to give it all he has. It worked for Trey, and now he's in the NFL, and I think that's what Banks has his sights set on. So, and I think we're going to throw the ball a lot.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised at multiple 100-yard receiving games for Banks, which you have to have if you're going to get that number. So,
and that record could be broken by. That's another cool thing to say. Nair could break that. Lloyd could break that. I mean, Lloyd, how many plus 50 catches he had last year? If that continues, yards are going to rack up pretty quick. So.
Man, I'll tell you what, I love Nair. Like, I love the way he runs. Watching him in the spring game, he runs like a gazelle.
Yep.
And, both those guys are big. And so they give Raiola some big targets.
Yeah.
All right. Season prediction. We'll do that before this week against UTEP. So what do you have for the record?
Record, I got to go 9-3. I could easily argue 8-4, and the fan in me would want to say 10-2, but 9-3 sounds doable.
So who do you have them losing to?
Yeah. So I'm going to break it into 3. I think there's an obvious loss. There's a loss that kind of creeps up on us, and then more the heartbreaker, which is going to be. I think the heartbreaker is going to be
nice. That's nice. I might steal that from you.
Okay. I think we split an Iowa or Wisconsin, and I don't know which one of those. We need to beat both
teams.
It's been way too long since we've beaten either, but I think one of those will get us. Ohio State's going to get us. I do think we'll be competitive.
But are you a believer in Will Howard?
No,
I'm not.
Yeah.
People, he got benched at Kansas State. Am I mistaken?
We'll see. Did he play with Adrian?
Well, he replaced Adrian, but then the next year, didn't. Right? Am I making that up? I have to look back. You guys, if you're listening, for probably the 4 of you who are listening.
He also doesn't feel like your typical Ohio State QB. So
I know he runs
Kelly type of QB too. Yeah,
so. I know he's kind of a runner, but I don't know. I'm not a believer in Will Howard. I might even be surprised if by the time they play Nebraska, he's still starting.
Yeah,
and people aren't talking about that. But Will Howard this, Will Howard that, and I'm like, maybe he is great, but at Kansas State, I'm like, he just seemed average to me.
Yeah. I
have to look back. I might be wrong on that. I thought there was kind of a, 2 quarterbacks, and he was one of them. The year after Adrian was there. So
I'm going to say I'm going to say Iowa. I'm going to say we drop Iowa, and that one's going to be really crummy last game of the year.
It is a short week because we have Wisconsin. I'm looking at it now.
Yeah,
on the 23rd, and then it could be, we play that game against Iowa November 29th at 6:30 p.m. in Iowa City.
There could be some things on the line. If you've
never been to Iowa, Eastern Iowa, there are no buildings out there. Like, that wind is just like Lincoln, right? It will whip, and so it could be a nasty night.
I have been there bundled up, only your eyes showing. When did I go?
You've been to Iowa City?
Yeah, went to a game with my dad. We drove out early in the morning. And
did we lose that game?
Yeah, we lost. Tommy Armstrong. It was a Tommy Armstrong year.
Okay.
But so I think we drop that one. We drop Ohio State. and I'm gonna say we drop Purdue on the road. I just it on paper that's oh heck no, that's not happening. But maybe that's one of those we just fall asleep and get a little ahead of ourselves. So
Okay. Similar, but I'm going to go 8-4, and I'll be thrilled with 8-4. Obviously, we've won 3, 4, and 5 games for the last 7 years. So I think our losses are to. I'll go in reverse order. Iowa. Talk about another oddly specific prediction. I think they're going to lose to Iowa on a game-winning field goal by Iowa. I'm not crushing your reaction there. I wrote about that at Husker Corners. You could check out that article. I think they'll lose to USC, unfortunately, in a shootout. Ohio State. And then I think people might hate this. They might think I'm crazy. I think they stubbed their toe against Illinois on that Friday night game, September 20th. I think, if I get that right. Yeah, September 20th. Nobody likes Friday night games, and everybody's going to hate them after that.
Yeah.
Illinois doesn't scare you, but like Bielema's teams just do crazy things, and all of a sudden they can absolutely lay an egg for weeks on end, and then all of a sudden they show up and they look like the Chicago Bears, the 85 Bears, and their offense does just enough but doesn't make mistakes, and they basically it's just a war of attrition, and they end up beating you like 18-15.
Yeah.
So
and he loves to beat Nebraska.
Yeah. So I hope we don't lose that game, obviously, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do lose that. So 8-4 for the year. All right, this week we are 3 days away. What do you got for a score?
We will win it. So, okay, I got to throw my safety in there. So I think the defense gives up.
You got to work that in.
I think the defense gives up. Yeah, defense is going to give up 17. Offense is going to score 37. So 5 TDs and a safety.
Okay, so the 2. All right.
We're not going to make
close. Really close to what I have.
I think we kick one and we miss it. So
okay. I got us winning 38-14, and I think John Hull is the kicker. I don't think Tristan will be ready because of his injury, not because of anything else. Which thinks that he's injured, but it seems like we have a few capable kickers to compete. So I think he goes 1 of 2 on field goals, and I think Dylan has a good day. I don't think he's going to turn the ball over, and that's going to be the talk of the day. I think we win the turnover battle. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if the game is 14-14 going into maybe the second quarter. Like I could see UTEP because they go up and down fast, and I could see Nebraska taking some time to adjust, but Tony White seemed to be pretty good at adjusting at halftime last year, and so wouldn't be surprised if we were able to do that this year and shut them out in the second half. So 38-14.
That sounds. Yeah, I think the line's around there as well, or the prediction, official prediction. So I think the secondary is going to have a blast. I mean, I'm gonna call it 2 or more picks in this game. You have a throw it around the yard type of offense. So, those young guys are going to get after it. Tommy Hill might get 1 or 2 already, and you're on your way to his 6th for the year. So,
hunt for that ball. Go get that ball. I think that's what I remember growing up watching Nebraska football watching the defense specifically was they wanted the ball.
Yeah,
and they took it away, and it changed games, and that's what this defense needs to do. So,
yeah.
All right, man. Well, I'm so excited to do this podcast. I'm so excited football is back. And there's football on tomorrow night. I don't know what game. It's probably a MAC team, but I'm going to watch it.
It's Coach Prime against the Bison of North Dakota State.
That's what's on. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Why did I think that was a Saturday game? See, Colorado does not live rent-free in my head, despite what some people think. I don't pay attention to that stuff unless it comes by on my Twitter timeline. But all right, tomorrow night, clearing the schedule to watch the Bison defeat the Buffaloes.
Yeah.
Did you know there are no Buffaloes in North America? That's not a thing. We only have Bison here.
Right. And it's the Buffaloes versus the Bison. Okay.
I know. Buffaloes are in Asia. It's an Asian thing. So,
James,
all right.
tell people where they can view this.
Yeah, you guys can see this. You can see this on all the platforms, YouTube here, but you can also find it on characterchronicles.com. So shout out to Adam inviting us to do this podcast and post it on his site. So we're really thankful for that. And you can find all the other shows on Character Chronicles that are hosted there as well. So thank you, Adam, for that. But yeah, like, subscribe, share, give us a follow. You can see our Twitter handles there at the bottom, at James Prush and at Andrew Reiners. We appreciate you tuning in. It'll be a fun ride as we go through this season. So, Andrew, good to see you, man, as always.
You too. Looking forward to texting during the game, and check us out next week for our reaction to how this goes. So
awesome. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.